It is a crossover edition of the Locked On Nationals and Locked On Mets podcasts. I am Josh Neighbors, the host of Locked On Nationals, and joining me today is Ryan Finkelstein. He is the host of Locked On Mets. We have a lot to get to today. We're going to record two shows, so double the fun with Ryan and I today. We're going to talk about the lockout right now. We're going to compare Ryan Zimmerman and David Wright, interesting kind of career paths, in unison. For most of their careers. And also, we're going to talk about Juan Soto because Ryan and I had a conversation a while ago about Juan Soto to the Mets and Juan Soto's future. The news came out that before the lockout, he turned down a massive contract. We'll get Ryan's thoughts on that and more. But first, it's our intro video.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Once again, I am Josh Neighbors, host of Locked On Nationals. He is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets. Ryan, first of all, how are you? It's good to see you.
Just another day in the lockout, doing good. Pretty much just been waiting all week to see some movement and hasn't felt like we've really seen any. So I guess we'll be doing a lot of these shows where we're talking about, future stuff, past stuff, Zimmerman, Soto, because the current product might not be here for a little bit.
Yeah, so the deadline that Major League Baseball set before they start canceling games is the 28th, which I believe, today you and I are recording on Thursday. The 28th, that would make it Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
And so I've referenced this article, Evan Drellich, he wrote this a while ago, but basically talked about how the best offers usually don't come till like the very end, really until we get down to it. I think that when I they're trying to make progress right now. They're meeting every single day. This probably should have been done a bit earlier. I think when we think about the history of these two sides, and really just it's not been always a good working relationship all the time. There were a lot of days where they just weren't meeting, like in December, right, and parts of January, and you're thinking like, fellas, can we get on the horse maybe a little bit and get in the room and start hashing this stuff out? Because like it's not going anywhere. You know what I mean? The issues are there. We got to tackle them. It's the only way to do it. And so now they're pressed for time. I mean, do you think it was always going to end up pressed for time no matter when this deadline was? Or do you think they probably should have worked on this a bit earlier?
That's the most frustrating thing is it's like everyone has known the playbook for each side. And so why not just have conversations the whole time? That's what's been really annoying is it's like, the owners are trying to create this leverage by cutting into the season because that is how you get to players getting prorated salaries like in the COVID shortened year. The players are trying to avoid that. Everyone knows, what's kind of at stake here, and there just hasn't been any movement. It's great that they're talking now, but there was 2 months where they could have been talking, and it's just that it's the entire thing is tired. And, I think we're going to see it go into next week, and then that's when the owners feel like the leverage really begins. But I really liked whatever report came recently where it was if the players don't get a full season, their big kind of leverage plays that they won't do an extend or expanded playoff. I think that might be the one saving grace is, that is a huge revenue stream for the league. So maybe that is what ultimately gets a deal done is that everyone can agree that you have to get something, to the table that works so that you get as many regular season games for the players and so that the owners get that expanded playoff.
Right. And it's interesting because, I cover also college sports too. And 3 of the big conferences just decided to pass up at least $450 million and not expand the college football playoff, which is just bizarre. It's one of those things where it's like you almost have to do it right because of the financial gains, but the players rightfully should use that as a bargaining chip. Did you see the Associated Press article about Max Scherzer, where it's Max Scherzer pulls up and I think was it a Porsche or something like that?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of something about that. Like, come on,
I tweeted. I was like,
shocked he has a Porsche.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
It's like, is he supposed to show up in a Honda Civic? Like, what's he supposed to do?
There's first round draft picks that can show up in a Porsche when they get their first signing bonus. Like, he makes money. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the man who makes money is allowed to spend his money on whatever he would like to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's supposed to take a taxi to the negotiations. Like it's ridiculous. Um, yeah, so that's the frustrating part, right? Is it feels like this stuff could have been worked on. It could have been well ahead of time. And what's really interesting, I was working this morning for Sirius XM, working the SEC show, and right now, obviously, they're excited because college baseball has started. But we had former LSU shortstop and currently a guy in the Cardinals organization, Kramer Robertson, on the show, and he was basically saying, like, the last time I talked to the team was when they told me what day I had to report. And he's like, I'm just watching television like the rest of you, which is this really
Yeah.
crazy idea, especially for those, like, he's one of those guys too. He's fine off. His mom is Kim Mulkey, who is coaches LSU women's basketball. So, he's in a decent position, but like guys like him, that is a tough life when you're sit there and you're not making that much money as is when you play, and you're like, you're trying to figure out, do I need to pick up another job? Right?
Yeah.
Do I need to, tell a high school that I can coach for them this year or something like that? I mean, those are the guys that you think about. And that's where the pressure goes onto the players of, that's when I think the narrative goes, hey, Max Scherzer, you're gonna crunch those guys who are sitting
Yeah.
there and not making money and don't make that much money as it is and need this. You're gonna hurt those guys. But at some point, I mean, that always happens to players in these negotiations, regardless of sport. And I'm just thinking it'd be really nice to see a players association get a win. The NBA Players Association actually has done a pretty good job, but like the NFL's just get steamrolled. I mean,
Yeah.
constantly steamrolled. Like it is one-way traffic in those negotiations. I mean, the 17th game, they got a 17th game, and I was like, this probably not going to be good for the players, but it happened. Um, do you think the players are going to be resolute on this? Do you think we're going to see them stand up and kind of fight for the things that they're fighting for, and just kind of hold the line?
It certainly seems like it. The one thing that I was thinking of as you talked about, that player is you have the Max Scherzers of the world where, they obviously can stay pretty resolute in what they're asking for because he's already financially secure. What's interesting is you have these guys that were just added to 40-man rosters. They're the ones that are hurted the most is because their development stops. If you're not on the 40, I think the minor league season is going to go on, and there's guys in camp right now. So there's some prospects right now where they're even getting more attention, and in a weird way, it's almost good for them. Just because they're getting all the major league coaching staff looking at these top prospects right now. But yeah, it's the guys that are in the middle that this is really hurting. The guy that's number 39 on the 40-man roster who hasn't made a ton of money. And so I wonder if that player is going to be, catered to by a players association, where, let's be honest, the guys that have the biggest, voices are the Max Scherzers, who are going to continue to push for the best deal. And that could, come with a lot of, lost money here for some of those other guys.
Right. And a lot of the minor leaguers, yeah, they're back at it. It's the guys who are normally minor leaguers that are invitees to spring training, right? Who are going to big league camp. Those guys are the ones who are limbo. It's almost like I'd rather almost start my season in AAA and kind of, get that normality. Because Ryan, you and I have talked about this a bunch. Like, think about the last use a 5-year window here. Think about the weirdness of the scheduling, right? So go all the way back to 2019, right? Standard season. Okay. Then you go to 2020. And then at that point in time, it is a non-standard season. And the spring training and stuff, it shifts a little bit. Then you go to 2021, regular length season and a normal spring training. 2022, spring training is not on time, right? And then you look next year, and we're assuming that things go well, everything will happen on time. So you are having basically 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 irregularities in terms of how each season has gone. And to me, that's a huge concern because that's not good for the health of the players. I especially think about the pitchers, right? You think about those guys just not having a standard ramp up February, right? There's a reason why these guys only throw an inning or two in each of these games, right? And you can't simulate that game experience, anywhere else. Besides, spring training really does help you do that. You just get on the mound, umpires, base runners, the whole nine. It allows you to do those things, and guys are missing out. And also, the health part of it, like guys like Steven Strasburg, right? Guys, like Patrick Corbin, who needs a rebound, right? So guys are dealing with injuries right now, and trying to come back. Guys like Joe Ross too, and then guys, like Patrick Corbin, who are trying to rebound. It's just it's a really difficult situation for those guys when it's like, man, I'm not feeling okay, or either that, or I'm not playing very well. I was looking forward to getting there on time and starting and getting after it. And it's just so disruptive, I think.
Yeah, and on top of that, you also have, baseball is so much about numbers, right? So if someone's going to be a free agent next year, and now maybe they only get 130 games instead of 162 games, maybe they hit 24 home runs instead of 30 home runs, and it starts to maybe cut into how they're perceived as a free agent too. There's a lot of fallouts from missing games and from changing, as you said, the regularity of what the baseball calendar used to be. So. I don't know. Hopefully, there's some crazy amount of movement over the next like 72 hours here, because we're really getting down to it. But I just feel like we're going to be missing at least some time here. I would be shocked if we got a full 162 at this point, to be honest.
Yeah, and I mean, I am a fan. I don't think we should be playing 162. I think I don't believe in that either. No, I don't want it to happen like this. I am for shortening the regular season, expanding the playoffs. I think that to me is a reasonable way to go about this. One quick word from our sponsors here, and then we're going to kind of move towards a different topic, talk about Ryan Zimmerman and David Wright. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. You guys can go to built.com. That's built.com and check out all of the available flavors that they have right now. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. That sounds really, really good. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, 17 grams of protein in the majority of the Built bars. You guys can go to built.com today. That's built.com, promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, LOCKED15. You get 15% off at built.com. All right, so we just had the news last week. Everything's running together now. Ryan Zimmerman, it was last week, yeah, retiring. And so I thought it was a smart move. When you think about where the Mets are, or the Nationals, are right now, they're trying to figure out of all these guys, their own prospects, and also guys they traded for last year in the fire sale, who can be a part of the team, right? Who's going to be a part of it? And so Ryan Zimmerman taking that kind of DH backup first baseman role actually really doesn't do a whole lot for you, right? It's just kind of blocking somebody else. And I think he fully understood that. Now, also, he got to say yesterday, he went out on his own terms, which we love to see. Love it when athletes get to go out. He could have come back and played. He said he didn't want to anymore. The game, the game usually tells you when you're done. Not for him. He got to have that luxury in the end. So I like the situation. I was happy about it, but it made me think about other guys, like this. And David Wright was the guy who popped to my mind. Obviously, different situation. The Mets have been around for a lot longer. Ryan Zimmerman was, the first Nationals draft pick, but their careers coincided together, and injuries did force David Wright. But it feels like these guys were never always usually not the best player on the team, right? In some situations, but they were kind of the face of the team, right? They were kind of the guy. Dudes would come and go, but the one kind of constant there always were David Wright and Ryan Zimmerman. So just want to know what you thought about that comparison, and also, your thoughts on Zimmerman as somebody who covered him from the opponent perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the two of them for a large part of their early careers, they were compared to each other because they played the same position in the same division. So that was always natural. It was, which one's the better defensive third baseman? And then I think for both of them, that kind of tailed off throughout their careers pretty significantly. But yeah, it was good to see him retire on his own terms. It was good to see him retire only playing with the Nationals. I just wrote an article for Just Baseball last week talking about Zimmerman and Posey and Kyle Seager all retiring, and how we don't see a lot of these guys anymore that can spend a decade with the team and be this like franchise icon. And Zimmerman certainly was that. And David Wright, in a similar way, if you go through Mets history, the best Mets, a lot of them weren't homegrown. They were traded for, if it was Mike Piazza or Keith Hernandez. And, a lot of them didn't spend their whole, careers with one team. So David Wright is kind of unique in that way with the Mets as well, that he spent his entire career with the Mets and got to retire sort of on his own terms.
Yeah.
He got to come back and play that one game that was kind of a gimmicky type deal there, but he was able to get back onto the field. And as he said, get his get like what was it, the 2018 season or the 17, but get like a mark on his baseball reference page that he played that year. But It's crazy though that where the two of them were early on, Zimmerman had a lot of injuries early in his career that he ended up playing so much longer than Wright did.
Yeah, and for David Wright, it was tough in the end. And I always thought about David Wright, like he talked about extensively how much work he had to do before games. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
crazy.
It reminded me of, Tiger talked about it all the time when he was coming back. Like the amount, when he wakes up for an early round at 7:00, he's up at like 4,
Yeah,
stretching and that was David. It was David Wright too. And think about this: the volume of games that you play in Major League Baseball, like that is mentally just so draining to get yourself ready. And I think the thing is for him, it ended. It sucks how it ended, but fond memories for him across the board. And then for Ryan Zimmerman, also to to have a World Series there towards the end, still be a pretty decent player as well, was a positive thing. Because there was a little bit of time where it looked like he was a corpse a
yeah,
few years ago. He really sucked, and then came back and picked it up again. But yeah, just two guys who were kind of the captain, the
yeah.
face, if you will. And now we'll see the Nationals do to replace. They got some interesting guys. Riley Adams, a guy they got in the Brad Hand trade. Can't believe somebody traded for Brad Hand. Unbelievable. The funny part, I always mention this, is like the Nats could have had Brad Hand in the end of the season if they wanted them. Like if they
Oh
wanted to
yeah,
put Brad Hand back on the team, it's like, yeah, we traded you and you're already back because you were so bad. Obviously, I know he was with the Mets for a little bit too. It was weird to see him
yeah.
playing with Mets last year. But yeah, they're in a spot where they're going to see with what they have. Are the Mets, you think, done with any moves with their moves this offseason? Do you think they have a couple
Um,
more to make?
I think they have a couple more to make. What's interesting is it just kind of depends on when how quick of a ramp up you have. I wonder, is there has there been some conversation going on during this period? Like, are we going to get like a NBA free agency type deal where just the league opens and a million transactions come in? I got to imagine that we're going to see a lot. The Mets have to add to their bullpen that they likely want to add another starting pitcher. So I'm sure there's going to be more moves to be made. I don't know what the Nationals are going to do if there's they just got to get some bodies still, right? I mean, you would imagine they
Right.
still have to fill out their lineup, their rotation, just to get through a
The,
season. And I'm
the
sure there's a
pitching, the
lot of
pitching is what's concerning. Because honestly, they were pretty decent hitting last year, and even that happens when you have one
yeah,
side.
Juan Soto,
Yeah,
yeah,
everything kind of falls into place around him. We'll talk about him in a little bit here. I saw something the other day that was like, I saw an article. I forget who wrote it. It's like, should the Nationals target Carlos Correa? It's like, no. Oh, that's his, yeah, yeah. It's like,
well, they
no.
had
Why?
Trey Turner. I mean,
What that
if you're
was?
gonna pay a
Look,
shortstop and Soto, you had Trey Turner, so it makes no sense
I
why they
think
even moved
I
him.
did hear
But
the idea that like it's like, look, you can trade Trey, reap the rewards, and then go and get another good shortstop in the offseason. Sure, yeah, but the Nationals, like, what's the point? Now, I'm the kind of person that I'm not sure how you feel about this. Don't do all of your shopping at once, in my opinion, right? Don't make every single move you have to make in one off season all of a
yeah,
sudden. And so I think it's good to get guys like if they re-sign Josh Bell for 3 to 4 years, right? There's one more guy you don't have to worry about, right? Josh Bell, we kind of know what he is. Pretty stable guy, provides some power, had a decent season last year after he came back from COVID earlier on, was, really struggled, but we kind of know what he is, right? I think a guy like a Kyle Schwarber, who they knew they enjoyed playing in DC and had a lot of success there in a short amount of time. You give a guy like that 3, 4 years, right? You don't have to worry about it, especially now with the DH, right? So these are guys that just kind of fit in seamlessly. And I actually think the Mets got a few of those contracts. I think the Escobar one and was Mark Hanna 2 years or was that
yeah, that's 2 years
two?
also. They're
And
both number
then
2 year deals. Yeah,
Marte was 4. Was
4.
it 4?
Yeah,
So maybe not 4, but I would say, yeah, 3 years, and it's a guy that's going to be there for them. Because the thing the Nationals have to contend with right now is they get Cesar Hernandez, who like it's a 1 year thing. He's not a bad player, right? But it is what
he's
it is.
just you know what, he's actually one of those guys though that he's always pretty solid,
Yeah,
and I feel like he's gonna play for like 25 teams by the time he just get like
right.
1 year deals
He's
all ever since the Phillies the DFA'd or non-tendered him a couple years ago. He just been with like Indians 1 year,
There's
and
a
he
group of
just
guys I feel like who play for all the NL East teams, right? I think
yeah.
who was it? Was it Denny Echeverria? I feel like played for
Oh yeah, he
like
might have
every
played for like
single.
3 of them in 1 year. It's on the
Yeah,
Mets, the
yeah.
Braves, the Marlins he started with. So yeah, yeah, he passed around a
I
lot.
feel like Hernandez might be that guy, but they've got him. They've got Alcides Escobar,
Again,
which is like. Like,
He was decent. I remember he had a
yeah,
good
and
final
also
few
the
months there.
championship experience, right? The guy was a leadoff hitter on a World Series when we, as you know very well,
Yeah.
leadoff hitter who swings at the first pitch. Not sure why they're a groove him a fastball, but that's a guy that I think as this team has kind of been dismantled, they're kind of running out of guys that are position players that were there for the championship, right?
They need, you know what the Nationals need to get? I feel like they need to get like Jonathan VR. Like those are the type
Yes,
of players where it's just it's they're not really great players, but you put them in your starting lineup, they're gonna get 2 hits. They're never gonna walk. They're gonna hit like 280 with a 290 on base
that
percentage.
is Alcides
But
Escobar.
it's the same thing. Yeah, exactly. You know what though? When you don't really have a lot going on, you get
Right.
those guys and they move things along and they'll win you some games. There'll be a Thursday night where the 10,000 people at Nationals Park will get to enjoy Alcides Escobar winning them a game.
Right. And then, like they also got Michael Franco, which was, I actually think was
Oh, it's
pretty
great.
interesting. I thought it was actually kind of interesting. I think it's one of those where it's like, would you be surprised if it's like change of scenery? Michael Franco hit 30 home runs this year.
No, because
That's like,
I've seen it before, but he's also gonna hit like 190 with
right.
like a 250 on base, but he's gonna run into 15, 20.
I
I don't know
think it's
about 30,
important though.
but
They need that for Keyboom. They got to have somebody press Keyboom because it's like, you know, they can't just have, I mean, he's got to have some pressure on him. It's about time that he steps up and he plays. But think about both catchers from the championship team are gone. Zimmerman is now gone.
Gerardo Parra back. I mean, he's got to be back,
He's
right?
part timer. I think if they're short on people, they'll bring him back. Howie Kendrick, he retired and Trey Turner was traded away. All of these guys, Rendon obviously was gone. Scherzer's now gone. And so like you're talking about experienced dudes. Juan Soto is like, like the
Oh
guy
yeah,
because
the vet.
Victor Robles was around, but he's got to worry about himself. He can't worry about helping anybody else out right now. He's got to get his own stuff straight. So it's like, who are the veteran presences, right now? Because they got a bunch of young, interesting guys. Like Lane Thomas was awesome last year. We'll see that moves forward. Obviously, K-Barrett Ruiz is going to be a guy we look at. Riley Adams was awesome last year, and I think he'll take over that first base DH role. So they've got a lot of questions to be asked, but I wouldn't, I'm not breaking the bank, but I do think it is good to get guys because like if the Nats end up putting together a decent bullpen, they could get themselves a lot closer, and you don't have to do all of your business really fast, right? Let's just say they re-sign Juan, they get that done, and they have a decent year where the lineup does pretty well, and the bullpen is a lot better than last year, and it's hard to see it being worse. Then you're like, all right, let's see, let's put a couple guys together here, but you don't have to do all of your business at one time. If that makes sense.
I think that Mike Rizzo is one of those GMs that is really good at finding those little pieces to plug in. And then if the Nationals just happen to be in the mix at the deadline and you have, Juan Soto with an MVP season, then they could maybe try to add an arm here or a bat there to
Right.
actually go for it. Otherwise, they'll have a couple pieces that they'll likely be able to flip, kind of like they got something for Brad Hand and some of the other trades that they made maybe that were
They
a little
somehow
more.
got a player for John Lester, which
Did,
was
did they did they have did they trade Josh Harrison?
yeah, they traded. He went to Oakland with
Yeah,
Young
so they
Guns.
got something. I don't know what they
Yeah,
got. I'm sure it
those guys
wasn't.
haven't played yet at all. They got Mason Thompson when they sent. He's been pretty decent. Daniel Hudson over to San Diego. So they got a collection of guys. But before we finish this first part of our conversation, Ryan, what is the one player you'd like to see the Mets sign once the lockout's over?
Um, I would probably say Andrew Chafin, as
Mhm.
far as addressing the bullpen, and then if we're talking about a starting pitcher, I'd probably say Zach Greinke.
Ooh, I like that old man Granky.
I, I
Hold
just
down the
I
boat.
just think he makes sense. You got to have another durable pitcher with that Mets rotation right now, and Zach Greinke, if nothing else, will take the ball every fifth day.
He's old.
He
He's
is
quite
old.
old.
He already
Uh,
got an old rotation though, so why not?
Yeah, there you go. All right. Today's show is brought to you by Bet Online, our friends at Bet Online and BetOnline.net. I'm not sure if they have odds about when the lockout will end, but they should. That'd be fun to bet on. You guys can go to Bet Online and BetOnline.net today. They've got basketball, college and pro, football futures. I'm sure they got some stuff up to the draft already. They've got UFC. They've got boxing. They've got futures on Formula One, and they've got odds for NASCAR, along with Vegas casino games as well. So go to Bet Online and BetOnline.net today. It's the best place to get in on the sports action. It is where the game starts. All right, Ryan, this will be the end of part 1, but please plug your show and all of your other work. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. They can find Locked On Mets wherever they get Locked On Nationals. You can also check out some of the writing I do at justbaseball.com.
Awesome. And you guys can find me at @JoshNeighbors_ on Twitter. The show is called Locked On Nationals. You guys can find it on YouTube and wherever you guys get your podcast. All right, we're going to record part 2, talk a little Juan Soto. But thanks for listening, everybody.